and she will announce well, let me just say the official announcement about the memorial service will be coming soon. We've heard it's going to be several days in mid-September, but she may give it more specificity. Dick Gregory will always be with us. He's a giant for peace. He's a giant for truth, for health. He did so many things, including working very closely with my friend, Brother Bay, and I'll let him talk.
I first met Greg in 1971, so I was about 21 years old at Howard University. He came there to speak. And for the next 5 years, I was like a devotee. I'm like, everywhere I could follow him, I would follow him. But Greg had money, he could fly all over the country. I was driving. I had 2 small children at home, but I was always on the go. Greg helped transform my life. The things I'm in today, he laid the foundation for. He laid the foundation for the transition of diet, laid the foundation for the transition of fasting. I remember one time, Greg he talked about doing this air fast, where you don't eat any or drink anything for 7 days. I said, okay, I'll try it. So he invited me up to his house in Massachusetts. I went in there for 7 days. He supervised me doing this air fast for 7 days without any food or water. The man was phenomenal. I later was able to do it. He said, you really got to do this in the Gulf of Mexico. So I went to the Gulf of Mexico and did it again. The man was transformational. America lost its part of its conscience. That little voice that sits on the right side of your shoulder that tells you what's right and what's wrong, we lost that. That means we got to amplify that voice. All of us now have to begin to speak His words. We have to begin to speak with His passion. We have to begin to speak with His truth. That's the only way we're going to get through this thing. Take care. That's it.
Greetings, everyone. Barbara Gregory, I met him probably about 50 years ago. I was introduced to his message before I met him. I was living in Chicago at the time, on Michigan Avenue. They had the juice store, right? And Dr. Alvina Fulton was there. We used to sit down and drink juice. I've met him in Baltimore a number of times. I actually worked with his brother in St. Louis, Ron. Barbara Gregory will never leave us. As long as we can mention his name, he will always be here. His message lives deep in each and every one of us. As a personal dedication, I will always carry his message. And thank you.
We just love him.
All right. Bernard. Anybody else wish to speak? Go near the microphone. Make it easy.
Yeah, one perfect love, y'all. One perfect love. And those who know and those who don't know, we are all spiritual beings having a physical experience here on planet Mud. Barbara Gregory was very special. Not only did he sacrifice himself and many things to help us become more in tune with our universal consciousness, he's still living right now. But in the ancestral world, you heard others before me say it, it ain't no time for us not to raise our consciousness. So we're not here just to celebrate. We're here to commemorate, ameliorate, elevate, and honor what he was about. Because his legacy is continuing. Universal love, universal oneness, and universal consciousness. And why I say universal? Because all of us come from the universe. So ain't no time to play around. So we're here to honor that spirit, recognize it, but it doesn't begin today and end today, it continues. So don't be content with the food of chickens. It's not about individuality. It's not about the me or he or the she. It's about we collectivity for true sovereignty in the 21st century. One love.
Can we sing a song, Uhuru? How many people here remember Uhuru? Uhuru, aye, freedom. Uhuru, freedom. Hey, uhuru aye freedom. Hey, uhuru aye freedom. Hey, bring it up, bring it up. Uhuru aye freedom. Hey, uhuru Your hand truck. Again, for people who have a few words that they want to say, this is a 5 to 8 affair. So we're going to intersperse music and then speaking and music and speaking. So we had speaking, we had music, now we're going to have a little more speaking. So if you want to say a few words, please come forward. Don't be afraid. Chuck, I see you in the back, Chuck. Chuck, I see you in the back, Chuck. Can't hide, Chuck. Come up, Chuck. Yes, I'm talking to you, Chuck. I'm talking, come on up here. Capra, where's Capra? Front and center, Capra. Willa! Willa Walker. You have a few words right here. Of DC. Before this lady danced, there was no one that danced her side. Believe that. That was 1965. Everybody was running around looking like a pretzel. She said, wait a minute. What happened to the president? What? Hey, well, you have to say something.
Be careful. My friend, be careful. He's streaming here.
God bless everyone. I was able to meet Dick Gregory. I used to work for Union Station at the train station for Amtrak. And one evening, Dick Gregory was getting off the train. And it was a delight to meet that man. Because I tell you, I was really, really surprised. And at the time, he had a cast on his foot because he had injured his foot. And he needed some assistance. And I was able to assist him and take his baggage to a cab so he could get on the cab. And he was a wonderful man, a beautiful man. And I thank God for him. He paved the way for a lot of people. And he has done a lot for our community, I tell you. But he's going to be sorely missed. He's dear to my heart, and I just thank God for him and his legacy.
Good evening, everybody. I came over from Baltimore. I used to live here, but I came over from Baltimore because, as Melvin said, I was a member of his company for a lot of years. And so I feel like he helped raise me, but when I ran into Baba Dick Gregory, it was on a different plane. It was not him teaching or being a comedian. He was just being a regular brother in the room, okay? And it was at an event, and we partied, and he was dancing, you know, and he just wore me and my girlfriend out because he kept coming to our table asking us to dance, and we had a ball. So, I know the revolutionary, I know the comedian, but I know him as a regular brother, and he was a complete gentleman, and I just love him 360 degrees. You know, he was a human being, okay? All right, and I'm so blessed to have come along during the time when he wrote his book and when he had products out on the street, and that was life-changing for a lot of us. That was my first introduction to vegetarianism and watching my diet, things like that. So he really brought up some awareness in our community.
Come and tell us your stories, your memories about Dick Gregory. Come on up. Actually, while we do it the way they do professionally, come stand over here by the mic. People can just talk one after a time.
There are so many stories and memories I have of Brother Gregory. I remember, first of all, that he came to Bogalusa, Louisiana during the Civil Rights Movement. And I remember his activities in the Civil Rights Movement. I remember when Cook got near his eye. One of the last encounters I had with Brother Gregory was 2 weeks ago. I was leaving his son chiropractic. He was coming in. And we had a special moment because usually when I was with Gregory, I was Joni, I was Ife, I was Sim, I was somebody. But it was just he and I. He said to me, he said, "Brother Hicks, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." I said, "How are you?" He said, "I'm doing fine." And then he said, "How's your mother?" I said, "She turned 88. He said, I'm 84. He said, "You make sure you tell her I ask about her." He said, "You take care of yourself." And he said, "I really like what you're doing." I said, "Brother Gregory, you're an inspiration to all of us." I said, "The many things that you have done, you're not only walk the walk, but you talk the talk. And the only thing we can try to do is to follow your footsteps." So my message is, let's try to do half the person that Dick Gregory was. God bless you. Well, when I met Dick Gregory in Bogalusa, my father was the founder of a group called the Deacons for Defense and Justice. And the Deacons were the first group to carry guns in the civil rights movement and self-protection. And Dick Gregory happened to be coming into Bogalusa, and they picked him up at the airport, and he saw all these people with guns. And he said, "What is going on?" And he learned about the Deacons, and there were 2 carloads of them, man. There were 2 Deacons in the front with guns, and there was 3 in the back, and they were the lead car. And then another car with Dick Gregory was 2 Deacons with guns, 2 Deacons on the side, and he sat in the middle. So he said that was the first time he saw black men standing up proud.
Greetings everyone. I want to give thanks and praises for being here today and being a part of this wonderful ritual ceremony in honor of our beloved brother Dick Gregory. He was a light bearer. He was a healer. He wasn't a comedian. He was telling the truth. Okay, there was nothing funny about his jokes. He was always touched the heart of the matter. One thing I love about Dick Gregory is if somebody in need, he would step forward and come and be of assistance. It brings to memory of Brother Kibwe Bay. Y'all remember Brother Bay? Dick Gregory and Brother Bay was like that. Many, many years. The work went on through so many ways. But I remember Brother Kibway in his last days, and there was a fundraiser over in Southwest, I believe, and Dick got on the stage and said, if I ever get hit by a car, don't take me to the health food store, take me to the hospital. So that means, translation, there's two kinds of medicines, and if you need to have one, don't think one is others going to help you. Try the other one as well. The other one was the work he did in honor and protection of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, trying to secure her home against the Jewish primary day school. And not many people knew about that, but Dick was in on that as well, stepping up and speaking up on behalf of our dear sister, who is now in spirit. So I want to say that as we witness some of us leave out, some of us others left here got to step up. We should not leave any gaps and holes in the way. We've already know what needs to be done. Let's do it. Ashe, much love.
I've been all right, man. I don't know how I can miss you big as you are. Okay, can we hear music now? Drumming? Drummers? Drummers, drumming? Drumming, let's see what you got. Make some people get up and move. That's right. It's not Sunday funny. Come on, you gotta do better than that. comments? Anyone who wants to do comments or tribute? At this time, a microphone, please come forward. Please come forward. Anybody who wants to make comment on the microphone? Please come forward. Don't be shy. Dick Gregory was never shy. Because he always had something to say that was worth hearing. Hello?
Tell your story.
Blessings, everybody. We gather in this sacred circle because we're remembering and honoring and celebrating the life of Brother Dick Gregory. Now, it seems like Dick has haunted me all my life. When I was at college, he was on a speaking circuit. And you know, Dick came with talking about all the conspiracies. And I was a young one in college. And his talk ended. And I went back to my dorm so afraid. Right there was, I just knew they were lurking in the shower or down the hallway. He had shaken me up that much. But one thing that I do know is that was the point of Brother Gregory's life, was to shake us up and to remind us that we have something to say. We are a people that have something to contribute into this world, and most of all, we're not asking permission from anybody to be respected or regarded. We stand on our own 2 feet. That's what Brother Gregory was about. One more story that we were having at the church, Father's Day celebration. And the speaker that they had contracted canceled out at the last minute. And everybody turned to me and they said, well, you got to find us a speaker. And I'm looking at them saying, I don't want y'all's mess to be on my shoulders. So I went on out to lunch. And I'm walking up in Silver Spring, and who's sitting on the bench but Brother Dick Gregory? And I sit down on that bench, and before it was over with, he was the Father's Day speaker. And he packed out the place, and he did a good job, and he brought down the house, and he reminded each of us that we are standing in a historical stream. We stand upon somebody else's shoulders. We stand in the midst of somebody else's dreams and hopes. We stand in the midst of somebody else's wishes, and therefore we need to carry on knowing that Dick Gregory lives. He lives in each of us, and all of us. He will never die, because spirits like this cannot die. We celebrate your life, Father Gregory. We celebrate your living. We celebrate your contributions. We celebrate the gifts that you have given to all of us. God bless you.
Okay, I'm really here to testify that Dick Gregory was all about health of the body and the soul. But he wasn't afraid to put his body out there on the line for something that he believes in. He was always fasting, always going on hunger strikes, because he cared. He cared so much about people. In 1993, Dick Gregory knew that Eleanor Holmes Norton, our delegate from SNCC, was going to put a D.C. statehood bill out before Congress. That bill was H.R. 51. Dick Gregory committed and followed through to go on a fast, not eating, not drinking anything but lemon water for 51 days. That's how it is when you believe in something. You will put your body on the line. So we have to say that we are going to be strong. We are going to endure. We're going to persevere for things that we believe in. We're going to put our bodies on the line when we believe in something. And I say all praise is due to Father Dick Gregory.
Thank you. Ayana, are you here? She's coming over at this time. Can we welcome Dick Gregory's daughter, Ayana Gregory?
I don't see her.
Any other memories, thoughts, reflections? I don't see her. Paging Iana Gregory. Come this way, sister.
Oh, she's standing.
We're going to do like the radio. In the meantime, until
She's
Iana
right
shows
over
up.
here. All the way over in the next crowd.
Any other thoughts, reflections, memories?
Excuse me, hello everybody. I'd like to give a few sound vibrations for Brother Dick Gregory and open up the higher chakras. And I'm gonna get my sister Shireen right here to hold this mic for me. Give thanks for the vibration.
Any other thoughts, reflections, memories?
I'm sorry, brother.
Anybody try the Bohemian diet? Anybody try some kill? Anybody say even your pets should be vegetarians? Come on now, let's talk. Must we have somebody out here some other words for us? Well, how about the later? Oh, come on, sister. You got something to say about that? Yes, sister, come on up.
Blessings, everybody. I met Mr. Gregory on a film set in 2010. He was supposed to be playing Buddy Bolden, who was a great original jazz father, and we worked in Wilmington, and I just remember Mr. Gregory always talking about how if you want to be loved, you have to be lovable, and how he was so free and giving with himself, and he would tell me these stories, all these really interesting stories, and I have to cover my microphone because I was afraid that they were going to hear all the information that Mr. Gregory was giving me on the set. But he just loved people. I would see him at Whole Foods, and I just feel so blessed and honored to have known him. I feel blessed and honored to be in this community of people who understand how important and great Mr. Gregory is to us even today. And Mr. Gregory, thank you so much for everything that you gave us in this world, and I hope that we get this thing right. I honor you.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. I just want to say that y'all who are right here are the ones who truly knew who my father was. You are the ones who truly knew who my father was. And my sister, Laini Mataka, just walked up to me and she said the best way to describe him, he was a mystic. Baba Dick was a mystic. And I want to share with you, he's been talking to me every day. There have been pains in my body that I've had since January that left the morning that he transitioned. My family stood around my daddy and watched him take his last breath. I have never witnessed anything so graceful, spiritual, or free. I found myself consoling strangers in the hospital who were breaking down. And it was magical. In that moment, I couldn't be sad because I knew too much. The sadness comes and it goes, but what is constant is the knowing that his spirit is ever present. I see him every day. He showed up to me on the day of the solar eclipse. He showed up as a bird. I was crying as I was meditating and I was saging. I was at the National Arboretum. And in the midst of the meditation, I broke down. I said, I don't know what to do, Daddy. Tell me what to do. And I looked in front of me and there was this bird. I thought it was a statue because it was so still. And all of a sudden, it stuck its neck out real long, like extra, like something my daddy would do to make sure I knew. I said, is that you, Dad? And all I could think of was when he talks about hard on the outside, soft on the inside, and willing to stick your neck out. And I knew that it was him, and in that moment I realized I'm going to get to see you everywhere now. I'm going to get to feel you every day now. He left me with so much. He took the pain out of my body because he knew I have a lot of work to do. He left us not wondering if he was ready. He told me he was ready. He said he was tired. Minister Farrakhan spoke to him the morning before his passing. Everybody was calling from all over the world and he just couldn't talk. But that morning that he knew, he spoke with Minister Farrakhan and Minister Farrakhan said that we selfishly want to keep you here. But Brother Dick, you are my elder. And you've done your work. A life well lived, and you get to go home if that is the Creator's will. My daddy said he was tired, and I wasn't ready, so I kept second guessing myself, even though he was telling me in so many ways that the night before he left. I said, Daddy, what is your spirit telling you? And he looked at me and he said, ain't you looking? You asking me questions you already know that. I went upstairs to talk to the nurses at Sibley. They treated him like royalty without even knowing who he was. There were nurses that walked in the room and were just tearing up for no reason. They didn't know why. And the day that he was supposed to get out and go home, the nurse said, you ready to go home? He said, not the one you talk about. The last 6 days, he got real quiet. You know, my daddy had never been quiet. We thought he was hallucinating and delirious because that's what the doctor said. He was talking to the spirits. He was in process. He was ready. He was ready. So he left us with a final book called Defining Moments in Black History. And then we crossed the black out because Black history is history. And over the summer, he stalked me to edit this book because he wanted to make sure it was right. And there were things, well, y'all know how my daddy is. It took us 3 hours to edit 6 pages because he won't keep rewriting the book as we go. But I didn't realize what he knew, that some of the information he was giving me wasn't for the book. It was messages he was giving me that I needed. And so in my frustration at times, I'm like, how are we gonna get through 250 pages with him trying to edit and spend 3 hours on 2 pages? But I was still obedient. I still did what he asked me to do. I didn't know why then what I know now. Some of that information wasn't for the book. And he knew that, but I didn't know that. And it was such a lesson to me. Every day something else is dropped on me like, oh, damn, Daddy, I didn't know. And so I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. Let me tell you something about, we're in the hospital and he is going through all kinds of physical changes and he's asking us if we're cold, if we're hungry, is the temperature okay for us? This is who he was. He told my sister, he asked my sister Free, who was his goddaughter, he said, he asked her if she was cold, and she was cold. And she said, no, I'm good. He said, don't be good, be warm. Ask for what you want. Ask for what you want. Ask for what you want. If there was ever a time to be authentic, real, honest, and ready for your complete healing and transformation, it's right now. If there's a reason that we all gather together in his name, it's for that. My father gave up everything. He risked his life, not just his livelihood. We talk about how he forego millions and tens of millions of dollars because he was one of the few Africans in America that was not willing to be bought. But he didn't just give up his livelihood, he gave up, he risked everything, his life, his family's life, the death threats, the FBI phone taps. It's what we grew up with. It became the backdrop of our lives. But Daddy always taught us that fear and God do not occupy the same space. So I knew that he was invincible. In the midst of everything, I knew my daddy was invincible. He escaped so much. There were so many death attempts. There were so many assassination attempts, times where they were intending to poison him. They were intending to shoot him. One of our friends got hit by a car and killed because they thought it was my father. There were so many attempts on his life. And at the end of the day, he just kept saying, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. And the lesson for me was, in the midst of everything that we want to give life to on the negative, all the things that we talk about and give power to that really don't have power, let his life be an example. This brother lived nearly 85 years and escaped death every day. He spent more time in jail than he did on stage. And there were those who didn't honor him while he was here. But they want to honor him now. Many of his peers were intimidated by him. I can't tell you how many times we would go to rallies and marches, and there were those who blocked him from the mic, but the people said, well, why is Dick Gregory not speaking? And so those who were in charge were embarrassed into bringing him on stage. Because anybody who knew my daddy knew that he was a man of the people. He always, always had his number in the phone book. Who does that? He did. He never walked with bodyguards. We were embarrassed to say that even in his final days, Daddy was traveling alone. If you look at his contemporaries that are still alive, they have 3, 4, 5 people trapped. Dick Gregory traveled by himself. Even times when we traveled with him, we still couldn't keep up with him. We'd be in any given city. We was down in New Orleans and we call ourselves checking on him. And we go to his room, he's gone. He's down in the French Quarter, talking to the astrologists and the mystics. He was something from another planet. I know that he wasn't human. And I know the agreement that he made with the Creator and the universe and the ancestors was that they got him while he was here to do this work. And he left when it was his time. He left when he was good and ready. He left when everything that he needed to leave had already been left. And so whatever the message is that he left with you, whatever resonates, I know there's some of y'all who spent a lot of time with him. I know some of y'all tried to walk away and he wouldn't let you walk away because he had to talk to you for 4 more hours. I know that. He had a lot of information and he knew he wasn't going to be here for him. And a lot of times, I mean, you know he didn't cuss everybody out. But a lot of times when he said, shut up and listen, he wasn't just talking about, listen to me. Listen. Put the smartphone down. Listen to the real intelligence. Put your ear to the ground. Get barefooted on the soil. Listen. If there was ever a time to listen, it's now. And Daddy's talking to me every day. The world is going to gather to honor my father on Saturday, September 16th. We will give more details in the week to come. But Saturday, September 16th, the world will gather in Washington, D.C. to honor a man that was not always honored, except by the people. Because y'all never wavered on Big Gregory, ever, 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 ever. And he knew that, and y'all knew that. And so it is appropriate that we honor him all over the world, but specifically here, because this is where he spent most of his time. He spent a whole lot of time at Malcolm X Park. He spent a whole lot of time in Rock Creek Park. Y'all know, y'all walk with him. We saw your dad walking up 16th Street. We saw your dad in the park. We saw your dad in the, I mean, y'all saw him in the Whole Foods, and he wouldn't let you out the line. Some of y'all got cursed out in Whole Foods. And you took care of him. You know how many times I got calls from around the country saying they took care of my father? They saw him. Because some of the youngins don't know who he is. Some of the youngins like, oh man, you can't talk to me like that. And the elders like, oh, you don't understand, young blood. So I want to thank you for taking care of him when his family wasn't there. I want to thank you for understanding when he cursed you out that he wasn't talking about you. I want to thank you for loving on him, for praying for him, and for allowing the mystic to do his work. I love you, I thank you, and I just say Ashe. Ditto what she just said, and my brother Johanse just got here. This is the youngest daughter of Big Gregory, Johanse, the youngest son. He's number 10, y'all. Johanse Makubela.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And, you know, we say things that sound so cliche, like it's an honor, it's a privilege. But when I say that ever since my father passed about a week ago yesterday, I've been in a state of complete thanks and praise because of the flood of love and spiritual guidance that came to me. I don't know if Yana already told you, but it's clear, just like in life, Dick Gregory orchestrated his transition to the spiritual realm. Folks had reached out and said, you know, I don't know if you're ready to talk yet. I don't know. I said, listen, while I know you expect us to be sad, with life there is death. That's a given. We can't be here and hold up the symbolism that we hold up, purport to believe what we believe and not understand the basic laws of the universe. So just as though we call something that is joyous or seems to be abundant or fruitful a gift. Everything the ancestors give us is a gift. And listen to me when I tell you, and I'm speaking for myself and every one of my family members, my father's transition was the biggest gift and blessing I've ever received in my life. And let me tell you why. 9 days before he transitioned, he went into the emergency room with feeling of just a basic pain in his stomach. It wasn't until 9 days later that he was diagnosed with an aortic aneurysm. He should have died within hours based on everything medical science says. Over those 9 days, what happened? 7 of his 10 children were able not just to come up and see him, but to spend days by his bedside. And not just his bedside when he was comatose and couldn't communicate. Just about every other day, he was ready to walk out of the room. He was trying to fight to get down to Atlanta last week to do 3 gigs. So we were communicating with him. We were talking with him. And in that time, he let us know he was ready. Not that I'm gonna die today ready, not that I feel, but when the time comes, I've left no stone unturned. I've done my work. My dad was 84, but he lived a life as if he were 184. He didn't literally come across this country helping brothers and sisters from state to state. He literally walked across this country over 3,500 miles in 74 days, connecting with everyone along that path. So his work was more than done. And he told us, I'm ready. I'm ready to go home. But what did he do before he left? He waited long enough for our mother. And anybody who knows our father, who really knows our father, knows his rock is Lily and Gregory. Waited for her to come to be there. Just hours, not to see him die, but hours before so she could see him at his vibrant, brilliant best. And then when he did transition, immediately started working wonders. There was about 5 family members who've had long-term health issues that immediately started clearing up. Immediately started clearing up. He started doing healing in relationships that had been damaged for years. Don't tell me Dick Gregory didn't orchestrate that. So how could I be sad? How could I be sad when this man who taught me how to pray, how to eat, how to think, how to invest every step of my life, how to talk, just gave us the biggest gift that the universe already could possibly have bestowed on a family. I said, and I was doing an interview in Atlanta earlier today, and I said, they asked me, what was the greatest thing your dad ever shared with you? I said, it was the truth of how the universe operates. See, some of us, we grow up, we go to church, we go to temple, we go to mosque, and we're told to believe in something. We're told to have faith in something. He actively showed us universal truths. You know, many people know that my father left the civil rights, left the comedy field and the riches of entertainment behind in order to stand up for the people in the civil rights movement. But what we don't think about, the very human side and real side that we deal with every day, regardless of what our beliefs are, what does that mean? He left a paycheck behind. He left mortgage payments behind. He left tuitions behind. He left school fees behind, school clothes, food, all of that behind. So what does that mean? There were a whole lot of bills, okay? Our house, even before it was foreclosed on, it wasn't a year that went by almost every year that we weren't almost in foreclosure. But what would my father do that showed us that active faith, the greatest thing he ever told me? Before a bank is gonna foreclose at noon, he'd come home from off a trip, get together, form a prayer circle from 10 for 2 hours, praying, meditating, seeing, see your mother smiling, see us going to the bank and handing in the check. 11:59, a call would come through. This is such and such, we got a check for $20,000. The house was not taken until I, the youngest, went to college when it was no longer necessary. He showed me the universal truths that when you put God and love first, nothing can take you down. Three times that we know of, this government conspired to take his life. He survived COINTELPRO, he survived Hoover, he survived the FBI. Forget Trump, he survived every president before him. He survived old age. He was on his way to do a gig. What if he had been on in an airplane, in an airport, alone and by himself? No, he survived all of that. You can't tell me the universe isn't real. You can't tell me that wasn't a divine blessing. A story that I was telling somebody else earlier is that people know of his relationship with Martin Luther King, and the love and respect he had for Dr. King was like nothing I've ever seen in my life. Hearing the stories of him talking about that. But his brother, not just in the struggle, but in life, was Medgar Evers. Every time he went to Mississippi, he stayed in Medgar's house. He never went to Mississippi without staying and being with Medgar. And one night, when he was doing a rally at a church with Medgar, he was getting ready to go on, and Medgar said to Dick, I gotta tell you something. He said, not right now, wait till. He said, Dick, I gotta tell you something. I said, not right now. He said, Dick, your son died. See, people know us as being 10, but they forget about our first brother, Richard Claxton Gregory Jr., who died of crib death at only a couple of months old. And so that night, he told Medgar, I'm sorry I can't be here with you. Went back to Chicago to bury his son. Within that time that he was gone, that he would have been there right by Medgar's side, was when Medgar was killed on his porch. He always says that if not, my son had to die to save me. He saved these racist white supremacists for getting 2 for the price of 1. He tells that story all the time. So the legacy that we stand on, yes, there's sadness. I woke up in the middle of the night the other day, just boo-hoo crying. And my wife rolled over and said, are you okay? I said, no. I said, don't get this twisted. I said, these are tears of joy. Because the sum total of our father's career has come about in this remembrance. But the important thing to know, especially when we're in this auspicious space that we are now, where we think 140 characters online equals activism. When we think saying no to the obvious equals putting your life on the line. Now let me say this, there's a lot of brothers and sisters around here who are putting their livelihood on the line. We see it now, it's become a conversation every Sunday. Who's going to join the protest next? And I applaud those efforts, and my father applauded those efforts. But understand, there's a difference when you got $50 million on the bank and you're putting your future income on the line than when you're leaving all of that behind and you're putting your life on the line. A Twitter death threat isn't a death threat. Walking out in Selma in 1963, that's a death threat. And people paid with their lives time and time and time and time again, and yet and still, Dick Gregory still said yes. He didn't just write a check. Oh, he did that too. But he still said, I'm gonna come down there and to deliver it to you. Before I hand it over, I just want to say, and to remind all of us, because I've seen this happen time and time and time again, please do not allow my father to be recreated in death as something he wasn't in life. I'll never forget when Dr. Betty Shabazz passed in New York, and I happened to be there at the time. And the line of those that were trying to come into the funeral service and get on the mic was bigger than this park. And so many of folks, not only would they not have stood with Malcolm when he was alive, they were actively working against him in life. They tried to pacify him, make them friendly and cuddly and soft and purring. Make no mistakes about it. My father's core belief was in the advancement of humanity. Just like Malcolm said, by any means necessary. If he had to bring the fire, he was bringing the fire. If he was bringing the truth, he was bringing the truth. But his core belief was in the advancement of the human condition with everything that he had at his disposal. And that meant telling truth to power. Not on the radio, not on TV, but right in your face. And so please don't allow that legacy to change. And for many of us here, I was raised in the African-centered community. The reason I have an African last name right now isn't because I was ashamed of my father. My father taught me about who I was. In fact, when it was time to take on the last name, Makobela, he helped me research our family roots. But understand, while he knew our earthly origin was on the continent, he was a universal being. It was no ism and schism and this and that, whatever. He subscribed to the one law, the universal law of love. So just like he fought for blood, sweat, and tears for our brothers and sisters here, and was there protesting the execution of Troy Smith in Atlanta, he was also in Texas protesting the execution of those supremacists that killed James Byrd. Truth is truth. And when you live a life of principle, so I'm not just talking about those on one side when I talk about twisting my father's legacy, I'm talking to us too. Just like he was in Ethiopia in the 80s, fighting for the end of the famine and literally spending months and months and spending millions of dollars there, investing in making sure his product, which became the Bahamian diet, was first invested in the relief camps there. He also was in Northern Ireland, protesting with Bobby Sands when he was a political prisoner there, fighting English oppression in Northern Ireland. He was a universal being, and his one law was being loving and lovable. Please don't forget that. And not only don't forget it, work to uplift it every single day of your life.
Thank you very much. Can we, at this time, welcome the young drummers of our community, the drummers of all the companies in the DMV. Would you come forward, drummers? Baba Mahiri, are you here? Where are you? All right, we bring the young men forward. These young men want to make their contribution to the tribute for our dear departed Dick Gregory. Would you all move over and give them some space to come through? Serafina drummers, Ancestor drummers, Conqueror drummers.
Yeah, I've been doing different ones. Next one is
every company in the city drummers.
I'm waiting for Tacoma Park to tell me.
There's a new generation drummer. Yes, they are.
I'm streaming this on
Everybody got to back up a little bit. We got a lot of drummers coming in. Just back up a little bit.
No, this belongs to Frank.
Just a little bit more, please. Two more back. Just two more back. Keep this circle. Just two more back. Come on.
Yeah.
Can y'all go back 2 more steps? Just 2 more. Come on, y'all. Y'all move all the way over. Everything should be over here.
Is that a 5?
Again?
5?
Yes. Yes.
I've got the 4.
Yeah, I sold my 4 and everything to pick this up because it's less. Other one was a lot clunky, and I do a lot of stuff underwater when I go to like Carnival and stuff. Right. So I needed it without everything.
I do. Vayana, you can say something.
You played at the center.
I go. If you can hear my voice, please quiet down the instruments. I know the brothers over there and the community over there are doing their thing, but we are doing something different here. To honor one of our
You're a big brother.
Our fathers and brothers.
Now you're coming in.
Now you're ready for the right.
Oh, okay.
I was asked to come here and to pay homage to one of my mentors, my brother Kofi by Ayana. And then I got another text message from one of my Babas and elders, Baba Melvin Dill, to ask me to come here also. If you understand Baba Melvin Dill's power in this community, then I can move on. If you don't, call me later for history lesson. Well, we should be here not just celebrating a life of Baba Dick Gregory, but remembering his message. I did not actually sit at the foot of this elder, but I made sure wherever he spoke, wherever he was speaking on a social media, and the relationship that I have with his daughter, I made sure I recognized the power that he's had in this community since the 50s, since the 60s, since the 70s, and moving forward now in the 21st century. He's one of my Babas that have predicted the future. It's happening to us negatively. He's also predicted the future and how we can correct the issues that we're dealing with. He did it through comedy. He did it through nutrition. He's also done it as an activist in the community. So we need to take this seriously and move forward with the elders that are now passing, and myself taking the role of the elders and the voices moving forward. All right? We're going to do 3 pieces of music. One of them is going to honor his birth as a male child. The second one is going to honor him as the strength of a man. And the third one is going to bless him as a griot or jaliba in this community. All right? Soli or Soko, give him a dunuma, and then we're going to also do jansa for the jali. All right? And then everybody else. So we're doing 2 12/8 rhythms or 6/8 rhythms, and the last one is a 4/4. And those, what I'm doing right now for my Baba and the family is I'm actually paying homage to him from the ancestral realm with the rhythms that make sense to his life. So I'm invoking spirit from the West African culture, bringing it here, not Meridian Hill, but Malcolm X Park. All right? So I'm one of the 4-year-olds that's sitting on the shoulders of some of the Babas here right now, walking around this park and drumming in the park when it was African Liberation Day. All right? And I'm not even from DC, and I still remember that. So I'm not sure what's going on now here, but this is what I'm coming down here for. African Liberation Day, drumming in the park, Malcolm X Park. All right? So if people can back up, that'll be fine, so we can have room. But that's what we're here for. Baba. Thank you, Baba.